Right now, the landscape of Port Charles is in a state of absolute chaos and unprecedented vulnerability. If you have been paying attention to the recent shifts in power, you know that Sonny Corinthos is currently standing on very shaky ground. Jason Morgan, his legendary enforcer, best friend, and right-hand man, has officially returned to town, but made the shocking decision to step away from the mob entirely to focus on his son Danny. This massive, foundational shift has left Sonny incredibly isolated, relying on questionable allies like Rick Lansing, and desperately trying to project strength to maintain his iron grip on the underworld. The protective shield that Jason provided for decades is gone, leaving a gaping hole in Sonny's defenses that the entire criminal underworld can sense. Meanwhile, the rest of the city is dealing with its own severe crises. Jen Sidwell is finally behind bars after his terrifying reign of chaos and his deadly trap at the art gallery, but he remains a dangerous wildcard even in custody. On the other side of town, poor Curtis Ashford is facing the absolute nightmare of a Pentonville sentence, just as he and Portia are celebrating the birth of their beautiful baby boy, Desmond. The chessboard is set, the major players are entirely distracted by their own personal tragedies, and the defenses of the Corinthos organization are completely down. It is the perfect storm for a hostile takeover. Enter Selina Wu. We all know that Selina never makes a move without a meticulously calculated endgame. I am hearing that Selina and her nephew, Brad Cooper, are making a grand return to Port Charles, and let me tell you guys, this is not a friendly family visit to catch up on old times. Selina has her ear firmly pressed to the ground. She has heard the whispers echoing through the docks that Sonny Corinthos might be considering stepping back from the mob life, a moment of weakness that she views as a golden opportunity. Selina is a predator who smells blood in the water. She knows that Nthura abhors a vacuum, and if Sonny leaves the throne empty, she fully intends to be the one sitting on it. She wants to take over the entire territory, absorbing Sonny's hard-earned empire into the Wu family syndicate. However, Selina is incredibly smart and endlessly patient. She understands that Sonny is highly unpredictable and fiercely territorial. He might contemplate retirement today, but a week from now, he could easily change his mind and come back with a vengeance to reclaim his territory. Selina cannot risk that kind of retaliation. She needs to permanently eliminate any possibility of Sonny ever returning to power. She needs to orchestrate a downfall so catastrophic, so absolute, and so legally binding that Sonny will be locked away in a federal penitentiary and stripped of his influence forever. To execute this sinister master plan, she needs a proxy. She needs someone whose hands can get dirty while hers remain perfectly manicured and above suspicion. And who does she choose for this dark task? Her easily manipulated, tragically flawed nephew, Brad Cooper? If you ask me, Brad never learns his lesson. He is constantly seeking his aunt's approval, desperate for family validation, and it always leads him down a path of wreck devastation. Selina orders Brad to orchestrate a brutal, highly coordinated hit inside the heavily guarded walls of Pentonville. She tasks him with quietly hiring a crew of hardened, ruthless inmates to launch a lethal attack on two specific targets, Jen Sidwell and Curtis Ashford. Why these two men? Because they are both deeply entangled in the power struggles and chaotic messes that Sonny is currently trying to resolve. By taking them out, Selina achieves two brilliant goals. She eliminates unpredictable players on the board, and she sets the perfect bloody stage for a frame-up. Brad does not wield the knife himself, of course. He stays in the shadows, moving the untraceable money, pulling the strings, and ensuring that the trail of evidence points anywhere but to the Wu family. But that's not even the craziest part. The execution of this plan is going to be a jaw-dropping twist that will leave fans absolutely screaming at their television screens. Picture the grim, cold reality of the Pentonville courtyard. Jen Sidwell, confident and arrogant even in an orange jumpsuit, and Curtis Ashford, a man just trying to survive his sentence and get back to his newborn son. Suddenly, the chaos erupts without a single warning. The hired inmates swarm them in a brutal, unprovoked ambush. The violence is swift, terrifying, and merciless. Shanks are drawn, and before the guards can even blow their whistles or intervene, Sidwell and Curtis are left fighting for their lives, bleeding out on the cold concrete floor of the prison. The sheer brutality of the attack leaves both men with catastrophic, life-threatening injuries, and they are immediately rushed to General Hospital, completely bypassing the prison infirmary to be thrown straight into the intensive care unit. But that's not even the craziest part. Imagine the sheer panic and devastation in the hospital corridors as the news breaks. Portia Robinson, who just experienced the profound joy of bringing baby Desmond into the world, is suddenly told that her husband is clinging to life by a literal thread, hooked up to a ventilator in the ICU. The emotional wreckage is unimaginable. The Ashford family will be shattered, weeping outside the glass doors, praying for a miracle for Curtis. Meanwhile, Jen Sidwell is also fighting a losing battle in the bed next door. The hospital is thrown into a state of absolute lockdown, with police swarming the floors. It is a scene of utter tragedy and heartbreak that will have every single viewer reaching for their tissues. But that's not even the craziest part. The sheer devious brilliance of Selina Wu's plan lies entirely in the timing of the attack. You see, the brutal stabbing of Sidwell and Curtis happens mere moments after Sonny Corinthos makes a highly publicized visit to Pentonville. Sonny, being Sonny, simply could not resist going to the prison to look Sidwell in the eye, to gloat over his defeat, or perhaps to fiercely demand answers about the murder of Marco Rios. He was the very last person seen speaking to Sidwell before the lockdown alarms blared and the blood started spilling. The optics of this situation are incredibly damning. The PCPD will take one look at the security footage, review the visitor logs, establish the timeline, and immediately jump to the most obvious, glaring conclusion. They will assume, without a shadow of a doubt, that Sonny Corinthos gave the order. The police will believe that Sonny went to Pentonville, delivered a final, chilling threat to Sidwell, and then immediately unleashed his inside men to silence his enemy forever, eliminating Curtis as unfortunate collateral damage to send a message. The trap snaps shut with terrifying precision. The PCPD wastes absolutely no time. We are going to see Police Commissioner Anna Devane and Detective Harrison Chase marching straight into Sonny's penthouse with their badges flashing and handcuffs ready. Anna has been waiting for a solid reason to lock Sonny away for good, and this neatly packaged frame-up is exactly the excuse she needs. Sonny will be arrested for attempted murder, conspiracy, and racketeering. He will stand there in his living room, absolutely furious and defiant, insisting to Anna and Chase that he is being set up, that he had absolutely nothing to do with the hit in the prison yard. But the circumstantial evidence is a massive mountain he cannot easily climb. The timing of his visit, his known history of mob violence, and his recent desperate attempts to solidify his power all paint the undeniable picture of a guilty, ruthless mob boss tying up loose ends. Sonny will find himself locked in a cold interrogation room, stripped of his freedom and his power, while his entire world burns down around him. It is a long-buried secret of mob life. The very moment you look vulnerable, your enemies will bury you alive. With Sonny behind bars, denied bail, and fighting the legal battle of his life, the throne of Port Charles is officially empty. Selina Wu wastes no time stepping into the void. She will sweep through the city with elegant ruthlessness, taking over the docks, the shipping warehouses, and the lucrative routes that Sonny spent 3 decades securing. She will present herself as the new, sophisticated face of organized crime in Port Charles, a queen ruling with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. The sheer audacity of her silent takeover will leave the other families and the police department spinning in confusion. She is actively building her empire on the ashes of Sonny's legacy, and for a moment, it will look like she has completely won. She has achieved the ultimate victory, and she did it without ever leaving a single fingerprint on the weapon. However, every perfect crime has a weak link, and in this intricate web of deceit, that weak link is Brad Cooper. As Selina coldly celebrates her newfound absolute power, sipping champagne in the Metro Court, Brad is going to start sweating bullets. He will watch the local news reports, see the utter devastation inflicted on Curtis Ashford's innocent family, and realize the horrifying magnitude of what he has unleashed. Brad is not a cold-blooded killer at heart. He is a weak, easily frightened man who makes terrible choices out of fear and a desperate need to belong. As he sees Sonny Corinthos facing decades in federal prison for a crime Brad orchestrated, the guilt and the sheer terror will begin to eat him alive. He will realize that he has been pulled entirely too deep into his aunt's dark, treacherous web, and that if the truth ever comes out, Selina will not hesitate for a single second to throw him to the wolves to save her own skin. And here is the ultimate climax, the moment that will have every single fan holding their breath in absolute suspense. Sonny Corinthos is not a man who stays in the dark for long, even from inside a jail cell. Sitting on that steel cot, pacing the floor of his cell, Sonny's brilliant, tactical mind will start piecing the puzzle together. He will look past the obvious frame-up. He will start asking Brick and his outside contacts to dig deep into the Pentonville money trail, to look at the guard rotations, and to find out exactly who paid those inmates to draw their shanks. And when the breadcrumbs start leading away from his own organization and point directly toward the nervous, sweating figure of Brad Cooper, the realization will hit Sonny like a runaway freight train. He will know instantly that Brad does not have the nerve, the money, or the resources to pull off a hit like this independently. All roads lead directly back to Selina Wu. The revelation that Selina and Brad are the true masterminds behind the Pentonville bloodbath and his own wrongful arrest will ignite a fury in Sunny unlike anything we have seen in years. This is no longer just a business dispute over territory, this is deeply, unforgivably personal. Sunny will realize that to clear his name, avenge the attack on Curtis, and reclaim his city, he has to completely annihilate the Wu family. The stage is set for an epic, scorched earth confrontation that will tear Port Charles apart. But with Sunny locked behind bars and Selina holding all the cards on the outside, how can he possibly strike back? Will Brad's guilty conscience be the key to Selina's undoing, or will Selina silence her own nephew before he can confess his sins? We will have to wait and see, because the war for Port Charles has only just begun, and the streets are about to run red.